All right, welcome back to the channel. So Austin Trout beats the WBO in court and comes one step closer to getting true justice and a proper ranking system for the boxers that deserve it in the sport of boxing. Let's talk about what Austin Trout did with the WBO in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Before I get into the video, I want to say thank you to everybody that watches the channel. If you are not subscribed, please accept my invitation to subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you can get all of the notifications. If you are subscribed, make sure that you have the bell icon. You should select all notifications, and that way you'll get all of the notifications, especially the live streams that we do Monday through Fridays. And thank you everybody that supports on the Patreon and everybody that supports as a channel member. Let's get into this, man. Austin Trout, my compliments to Austin Trout. Austin Trout is showing that he is the type of guy that really does care for the sport of boxing. He also, he cares for himself, and, he wants to be treated fairly, wants to be treated with, to be treated justly. And he went to court against the WBO to make sure that that happened. And just this week or last week, I'm not sure what day it happened, he won an appeal against the WBO that allows his case to continue to go forward. And let's talk about it, because it's really, I think that this case shows one of the major ways that boxing is corrupt and how it affects fighters. So Austin Trout was very highly ranked by the WBO. Well, first I got to tell who Austin Trout is. Austin Trout is I do believe he's the former IBF 154-pound champion. You've seen him with a lot of excellent fights, dude. He's fought Miguel Cotto and beat Miguel Cotto. He's fought Jermell Charlo. I do believe that he fought Jared Hurd. Is definitely one of the top 154 pounders that have been in boxing over the last decade. Austin Trout, southpaw, slick fighter, just a very, very good fighter. Not necessarily the best 154 pounder at any given moment, but dude can handle his business with the best of them and give anybody a tough fight, no doubt about it. He was on his way, in my opinion, to beating Jared Hurd when he fought him for the IBF 154-pound title. But, hey, man, he just wore on Austin Trout. So that's Austin, no doubt, Trout. But something happened to Austin, no doubt, Trout, that is just underhanded, and that he is saying is underhanded and slick and corrupt on the part of the WBO and also Frank Warren, who is the promoter or runs Queensberry Promotions. And this is what happened. Back into, I do believe it was around 2015, 2016. I won't give the exact years. You should look up the case. A very good article is written about it by MMA Payout, so you can check it out there. But there was a vacancy available for the WBO belt and the WBO 154-pound title. And Austin Trout, I do believe at the time, was ranked either number 2 or number 3 by the WBO. And the WBO's rule says that when there is a vacancy for a title, that the two highest ranked and available opponents will fight for that title. Austin Trout, there were four people who were in play: Liam Smith, Canelo Alvarez, this guy Johnson, and Austin Trout. Canelo Alvarez was not available because Canelo Alvarez was fighting Miguel Cotto, was preparing for a fight with Miguel Cotto. There was another guy that wasn't available for whatever reason, and it was supposed to, so the highest two ranked people would have been, I do believe, Johnson and Austin Trout, or Austin Trout and somebody. But what happened was that all of a sudden, during the time that they were supposed to, have the say who the fighters would be that would fight for the vacant title, inexplicably, Austin Trout dropped completely out of the rankings from the WBO. So, like, he was ranked very highly within the top 4 one week, and then the next week he was out of the rankings altogether. During the time period that he was out of the rankings altogether, they ordered a fight between, I believe it was Johnson and Liam Smith. The Liam Smith who eventually wound up fighting Canelo Alvarez. Liam Smith, the brother of the current 168-pound champion Callum Smith, wound up fighting for the vacant title. He wound up fighting the vacant title against a guy that pretty much had no chance to beat him. He held on to those belts and eventually winds up fighting Canelo Alvarez. Now, the problem with that is that according to the Muhammad Ali Act, the WBO and the WBO's rules, they're supposed to inform somebody of when they leave the ranking, or when they leave a ranking system, or they're demoted. They are supposed to inform the person about why they were demoted, why their ranking why were they demoted in the rankings, or why they were lowered in the rankings. They're also supposed to have other things as far as, other requirements around notification and explanation of this ranking because of the change in the ranking, right? And that is mandated by the Muhammad Ali Act. But the WBO did not follow any of those procedures. They just dropped Trout completely out of the rankings. And then after the fight was over, right, my understanding is, and again, check the facts on it because I'm giving you an overview of them, and some of the dates and times might be a little off, but make sure that you read that. But after the fight, after that fight was ordered, immediately thereafter, Austin Trout magically appears back in the rankings, right? So where he should have been the guy that got a shot to fight for the title, he winds up dropping out of the rankings. They have the fight between Liam Smith and whoever it is that he fought. Liam Smith wins the title, and then after Liam Smith wins the title, Austin Trout magically appears back in the rankings. Now, Austin Trout says that, hey, this happened because, or at least my understanding is they say, hey, that's because the WBO was dealing with Frank Warren, and Frank Warren gave them financial incentives to allow Liam Smith to get that title fight against their own rules. So Austin Trout sues them. Now, this is the thing that I find, like, because that's one thing that is corrupt about that move, right? But then when Austin Trout goes to trial, I do believe he originally files his case in New Mexico. Then the WBO tries to successfully has that moved from the court in New Mexico to a federal court in New Mexico. And then once they get it into the federal court in New Mexico, then they're able to get the case moved from the federal court in New Mexico that's responsible for New Mexico to a federal court that is that oversees Puerto Rico, where the WBO is headquartered, right? So once they've successfully moved it out of the state court, I do believe it was a state court in Nevada, to a federal court, and then they change venues from the New Mexico federal court to the one that's over Puerto Rico. The court in Puerto Rico, the district court in Puerto Rico, says you have to go to arbitration. So they dismiss the case altogether and send it to arbitration. Now, the problem with the arbitration is that this is an adhesion contract, a classic adhesion contract, where the person that enters into the agreement doesn't have any room to bargain whatsoever, and they have to take it as it is, right? So, and this is similar also to what happened with Andre Ward when Andre Ward was having problems with Goosen. In the promotional contract between Andre Ward and Goosen Promotions, they said that the arbitrator would be the Nevada State, was it the California State Athletic Commission, right? Which has a bunch of people that Joe Goosen knew. And Andre Ward had to try to get it out of there and was successful at getting it out of there, goes to Houston, right? And then when he gets to Houston, all of a sudden they drop the case. So that's what's happening with Austin Trout. Austin Trout signed, obviously, because he went the WBO route and is trying to, do and fighting to get ranked higher in the WBO. He obviously has to work under the rules and the constitution of the WBO. But the rules of the WBO says that they get to pick the arbitrators, right? So if he's forced to go into arbitration, right? Arbitration is where you have somebody that is going to that is not, an official, is not officially portion of the legal system. It's just somebody that you guys agree that they will sit and decide the case between the two. But because of the way that it's written, the rules are written, the WBO would get to pick their own employees to arbitrate it, right? They could literally pick whoever they wanted to, and Austin Trout would have no say-so over who the arbitrators are whatsoever. And as a result, what's going to happen. The WBO would say, yeah, these are the arbitrators, we'll hear your case, and now you lose, get out of here, which would eventually mean that there's no oversight on the WBO at all. Now, so when this particular appeal came up, they also, I do believe they amended their original complaint to include a violation of the Ali Act and not just, breach of contract, fraud, and the rest of the things that they accuse. So, he brought into it the Ali Act. So they found that on appeal, they basically said that this is going to go back to the district court, and Austin Trout does not have to have an arbitrator selected by the WBO overhear the case. So now they're at the point where Austin Trout can take the WBO to court and now have the case tried on the merits. Now, a lot of this stuff that I talked to you about was procedural, right? And about the jurisdiction and who has the right to oversee and who has the right to decide, what the outcome is. But now the WBO rather, is actually going to have to defend itself in a federal court and not in front of some arbitrators that they themselves choose. And I think that is a very big win. That's a big win for the sport of boxing, especially when you're talking about the WBO, because if you pay any attention whatsoever to the WBO, you'll notice, dude, that these guys only have, it shouldn't surprise anybody that a PBC fighter like Austin Trout would automatically disappear out of the rankings from the WBO in order for a Frank Warren's fighter to magically appear there, get a shot at the title. They get the guy that they want to be champion, and then and only then does Austin Trout come back into the rankings. Now, I know this is a very heady video, and I'm sorry for getting into so much detail, but look, man, this is an important thing for fighters because you're supposed to be able to fight. You're supposed to be able to, boxing's supposed to be about the best man, the best fighting the best, and may the best man win, and that type of mentality, right? But when you see mechanisms and games being played like we're playing on Austin Trout by the WBO, and you see it happen on a regular basis, it just gets upsetting. And it's nice to see that Austin Trout had the intestinal fortitude, he had the financial resources to push the WBO all the way to this point. Because let's be clear, if Austin Trout did not have access to money and the ability to do this, it would be almost impossible for him to get there, because you see that they're already on the original complaint, right? Then it gets moved to a federal court in Nevada. Then it gets moved to a federal court in Puerto Rico, and then it goes to the appellate court, and now it goes back to the district court. Dude, that's 4 or 5 different things he had to go to get to this point. And if they ultimately rule against the WBO, man, that's going to be an absolutely huge thing. Now, I know it's a ways off. It's huge for Austin Trout because it's $40 million. but it's huge for the sport of boxing because somebody has to have these sanctioning bodies, operate in a professional manner, one where, the best fighters get the opportunities. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. I know there was a long video on it, but hey, I just had to talk about it. And my hat's off to Austin Trout, man. Congratulations and keep up the good fight. You guys keep your eyes on that issue. Make sure that you share, like, and subscribe this video. And I'm out. Peace.